Welcome to the first deep dive in our audit readiness series. Today we cover scope, the boundary of what your audit will actually examine. Get it right, and everything that follows is faster. Get it wrong, and it becomes the most expensive mistake in the whole project. Let us continue with Acme, the software company, from our overview. Acme is pursuing SOC 2 to prove to a large customer that it protects their data. Scope is the line Acme draws around its organization, the parts the audit will cover, and just as important, the parts it will not. Draw that line too wide or too narrow, and the audit costs more, takes longer, or misses what matters. So this is worth getting right first. There is one rule that makes scoping simple. Scope follows the data. Start from the data the standard is protecting, which, for Acme, is its customers' data. Then include anything that stores that data, processes it, or transmits it. If a system touches the customer data, it belongs in scope. If it never touches the data, you can leave it out. Auditors use this same test, so it is the one idea to remember from this video. Let us apply that to Acme. Development builds the platform. Hosting is where the customer data lives, and support accesses that data to help customers. All three touch the data, so all three are in scope. Marketing and HR never touch customer data, so they stay out. When you are unsure about a system, ask one question. If this broke or leaked, would a customer be affected? If the answer is yes, it belongs in scope. Now, a subtle point, because scope means different things depending on the standard. SOC 2, which Acme is doing, scopes a single service you attest to your customers, so it is usually narrow. ISO 2000-2001 scopes an entire management system around your organization, so it is usually broader, and it can cover the whole company. One more distinction for ISO: your scope says what you protect, while a separate document, the Statement of Applicability, says which controls you apply. Fix the boundary first, then choose the control. SOC 2 has a second scoping choice, the Trust Services criteria. Security is always required. Availability, confidentiality, processing integrity, and privacy are optional. And you add one only if it truly matters to your customers or a contract asks for it. Each one you add widens the boundary, pulling in more systems and more evidence. Most early-stage companies start with security alone or security plus availability. Next, third parties. Acme runs on AWS, so AWS is inside the story but not inside Acme's audit. This is a shared line. Acme is responsible for how it configures and uses AWS, and AWS is responsible for the physical data center. You still name every provider that touches your data, but you rely on their own audit report for the parts they own. Name them, then draw your boundary at the handoff. Two mistakes cost teams the most. Scope too broad, and you pay to audit systems no customer cares about. Companies have seen an audit balloon in cost and time this way. Scope too narrow, and you exclude something that actually touches the data, which the auditor finds later as a critical gap, delaying everything and denting your customer's trust. The goal is not the smallest scope or the largest. It is the honest one. Everything that touches the data and nothing that does not. When the boundary is clear, write it down as a short scope statement. The service, the criteria, the systems and people included, the providers you rely on, and what you left out and why. Two artifacts do the real work of deciding scope: a data flow map that shows where the data goes, and an inventory of the assets that touch it. Diagramming and compliance tools can store and automate around that decision, but the decision itself is yours. This is exactly what our free worksheet helps you do. You map your tools, processes, and people, and it turns that map into a clear scope. Then you finish in one of two ways. Download a report to hand to your auditor, or sign in and let BrickGRC carry your data straight into an engagement ready for the gap analysis. Start free at BrickGRC.com/discovery and subscribe, because the next deep dive takes on your asset inventory.